Well, I just want to wish you, on behalf of my family and also the whole of our church family, a very, very happy new year. I haven't seen you since last year. Where have you been? And it's great to be here on the first weekend of 2015 as we come into God's house. There's no better place for you to be, so you have made the right decision today by coming to God's house. If this is your first time coming to our church, again, I just want to welcome you here. My name is Daniel Indrajaya. I'm one of the pastors here at the church, and it's a pleasure for us to have you here. And the rest of you, Christians, what a better way. There's no better way, that's what I'm trying to say, to start the new year than with God, with the whole church family right here, right now. All right? Now, in 2015, you're going to make about 25,000 decisions. Experts think that every person, on average, make about 75 decisions a day. And this year, you're going to make around about 25,000 decisions. Some of them will be very, very small decisions like, what am I going to eat? What am I going to wear? Things like that. But some of them will be more critical than that. Some of them will be very, very important decisions like, what should I do with my life? How should I use my time? Where do I go to school? Whom should I marry? Questions like that, you're going to make it this year. And sometimes we have so many choices in life that we don't know how to choose. We don't know what to choose. You know, I'm a very indecisive person. Sometimes when I go to a restaurant, I don't know what to order, especially if there's so many things on the menu. You know, sometimes we have so many choices in life. Yesterday or 2 days ago, my wife asked me to go to Bunnings to get a globe. You know, because we have one of our globes broken. And there's this whole aisle in Bunnings that sell you different types of globe with different wattage, different screw type, and everything. Sometimes you can get so indecisive because there are so many options. How many of you are like that with me? That you're a bit indecisive? Look at the hands around you. The rest of you are not sure? Okay. See, that's what I'm talking about, right? There's so many options that we get indecisive. This is in the Guinness Book of Records, the world's longest engagement. A guy by the name of Octavio Gillen and Adriana Martinez, they were engaged in 1902. But he couldn't make up his mind, and he kept putting the wedding off. They actually eventually got married, got engaged in 1902. They eventually got married in 1969. So it was a 67-year of indecisiveness. How about that? That's longer than it took Matt Garrett to decide to get married, a little bit. Today, I want to talk to you about just one decision. This weekend is the beginning of 2015. And you will make, like I said, a lot of decisions this year. But there is one decision that will trump all the other decisions that you will make in 2015. The question is, who are you going to follow this year? Or who or what are you going to worship this year? You know, every one of us has what John Ortberg, one of my favorite authors, called a master value. You know, when you have two competing different values in your life, you know, when there's no competing things, that's fine. You know, you make your decisions. But when two competing values are pitted against each other, there's one master value that will trump all the other values that you have. Kind of like the master key in your house that will unlock all the doors in your house. Now, the question that I want to ask you is, what is your master value in life? Who or what are you going to follow in 2015? Because this decision is not only going to impact your year, it's going to impact the rest of your life. If you're not a Christian, this is a very, very critical question that I want to pose to you. I do thank you for coming today, and I want to be just upfront with you this evening. Who are you going to worship in 2015? Maybe you haven't thought about it so much. If you are a Christian, if you are a Christ follower, maybe you think, this question is not really relevant for me because I already made up my mind a long time ago that I'm going to follow Christ. I worship Jesus. That's who I worship if you want to ask me. But sometimes, as I said before, what you say with your mouth and what you do with your life are two totally different things. At the end of the day, it's not what you confess with your mouth, but it's how you live your life that will determine how your life is going to look like. You know, you may say that you're a Christian, you may say that you're a Christ follower, but when two competing values in your life are against one another, do you still follow Jesus? Do you still follow Christ? And the answer to that question is going to be so critical, not just for this year, as I said before, but for the rest of your life. Now, I know, especially if you are new to church, you're going to give me a bit of pushback because, especially right now, we live in a postmodern era where people like choices, don't they? People don't like to get locked into a particular, contract, or they don't want to be committed to something. We have a tendency to resist anything that smells like a commitment. We like to have the either-or mindset. It's more fun that way. Why do I have to choose? Isn't it more fun to have either-or? And in life, I have to be frank with you, it is fun to have choices in life, right? Sometimes you don't have to choose, right? Why do you have to choose between good food and healthy food? You can go to Nando's every day. You get both. That's what I do. I go to Nando's because not only does it taste good, but it is actually good for you. See, TJ made me say this because he's going to promise me a whole year voucher of Nando's, and that's going to be fantastic, all right? You don't have to choose. Why do you have to eat healthy and yucky food? Nando's, healthy and good for you. Right? Why do you have to choose? Why do you have to choose between cheap and good? You can go to IKEA and you can have both good and cheap. 2 months ago, I built up the whole wall of cupboard for my wife Hulda, and it cost me like 1/10 of what others are going to charge me, thanks to the magic of either or provided by IKEA. I don't have to choose between cheap and good. I can have both. We love the freedom of options. But it doesn't always work that way all the time in life. One of the leading scholars in decision making is a lady by the name of Sheena Leanger. And she actually wrote a book about this called The Art of Choosing. And she became famous because of one particular experiment that she did, because she came from a different country, but she lived in America. She's a professor in America in one of the universities there. And she made this experiment because one time she went to a supermarket and she was surprised that in one of the aisles in the supermarket, she was going to buy a jam, right? And there were over 300 choices of jams that she could choose from, and she became paralyzed, like she could not choose. And in her experiment, she proved that if you are a business, giving too many choices for your customers is not good. It's not good for your business. You have to limit the choices that you give to your customers. That's one of the secrets of the success of Apple. They only give you a limited range of products instead of giving you hundreds and hundreds of options, because options are not always good for you. In 1996, I said I do to my wife. I've been married to my wife for that long. I'm one of the rare type of husband, the faithful one. The minister, I still remember, asked me this question before I got married, and in a few months, Matt Garrett, Sam, they're going to get married, and the minister, which is going to be me, we're going to ask them this question as well. So the minister asked me in 1996 this question: would you take this woman, Hulda Budi Lestari, to be your lawful wedded wife, forsaking all others, and be faithful to her? What if I said at the time, oh, hang on, minister, I like to keep my options open. What if there's a better model coming along in the next few years? I don't like to get locked into this one girl. I love Hulda and all, but this either or, I don't like it. I like to keep my options open. Now, how would Hulda feel about that if I say that at the altar? Do you think I'll be married right now? No way. I'll be single like many of you right now if I had said that, right? Now, the thing is this: you have a little altar in your heart. My question to you as we start this new year is, what are you going to put on that altar? You have an altar in your heart. You have to decide what you're going to put on that altar. Are you going to put success on that altar? Are you going to put security? Are you going to put pleasure on that altar? What is it? You have to make that decision what you're going to put on that altar. Every single one of us, including myself, I have to make that decision too. And the Bible calls all of us, human beings, into a wholehearted, unreserved, all-in, committed, wholly surrendered life to Jesus Christ. Not either or. Not, I like to follow Jesus, but I also like to keep my options open. You know, every now and again, I like to do things my way. I don't really like it when Jesus tells me everything that I needed to do. Just to tell you that, I'm not interested to be a part of the church that is coasting through life as if things that we do don't really matter. There are a lot of things that I can do with my life. There's a lot of things that you can do with your life. Spending hours and hours every weekend at church, volunteering, serving, coming to church, giving your money, you have to ask yourself, is this all worth it? Because if it's not worth it, let me just tell you, don't do it, right? I'm not interested in just being half-hearted and coasting through Christianity as if what we really do is somewhat important, but it's really not that important. I can do whatever I want whenever I feel like it. I'm not interested to be a part of a church that is like that. And I'm telling you, it's not just me, but God is not interested to have you following Him half-heartedly like that as well. At the end of the day, you got to make a choice. You got to make a decision. You got to commit to Him or not. You got to make that choice. If you are visiting with us, I'm not asking you to make that choice today. If you can make that choice today, great. I'm thankful that you actually here. You're investigating things. But at the end of the day, you can't, be half-hearted forever. You got to make that choice. And from the very beginning of the world, God already demands that kind of commitment. Moses says in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19, he says this. This is like as early as you can get. Today I have given you the choice between life and death, between blessings and curses. Now I call on heaven and earth to witness the choice that you make. Oh, that you would choose life, so that you and your descendants might live. You can make this choice by loving God, the Lord your God, obeying Him, and committing yourself firmly to Him. This is the key to your life. And if you love and obey the Lord, you will live long in the land the Lord swore to give your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. See, from early on, God, through Moses, make the people make a choice. You got to choose. Do you want to choose life or you want to choose death? See, God doesn't force you to do anything that you don't want to do. You got to make that choice. And then later on, Joshua, talking to the people of God, says this, Joshua 24, verse 15. Many of you are familiar with these verses. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether the gods of your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. And then Joshua said this, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And then generations later, through the prophet named Elijah, he came near to the people of God. And then Elijah stood in front of them and said, how much longer will you waver? Hobbling between two opinions. I love the language that he used, hobbling. Like you're not sure what you want to do. How much longer you want to do this? And then he said this, if the Lord is God, then follow Him. But if Baal is God, then follow him. And then, like many of us, the people were completely silent. They couldn't make the choice. Some of you are like that, God is desirable to you, but so is wealth, so is money, so is success, so is this and that. And sometimes those two competing values are fighting against one another. And most of the time, sometimes, God is the one who has to give way to your other value in your life. So you hear this from Moses, from Joshua, and then Elijah, and then came Jesus, the meek and humble Jesus. Jesus who was gentle, patient, lover of children, and you think Jesus will not demand people to make a choice like that, right? Come on, after all, he's Jesus. He's the friend of sinners. You know, he loved to hang around sinners and chat with them and spend time with them. But even Jesus asked the people to make a choice. And we're going to read a passage that is so powerful. And this passage is so very often misinterpreted, right? And can you hear me now? Okay. So even Jesus had to make that call. He needed to make that call, you know. And understanding this passage that we're going to read in a few minutes is very, very important for all of you who call yourself Christ followers. And those of you who are investigating Christianity. Because as I said, you know, what you decide based on this call from Jesus will determine everything in your life. So if you have your Bible, turn with me to the Gospel of Matthew from chapter 6, verse 19 to 25. Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verses 19 to 25. This is the word of Jesus. From verse 19, don't store up treasures here on earth where moths eat them and rust destroys them, where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven where moths and rust cannot destroy, and thieves do not break in and steal. For wherever your treasure is, there your heart, the desires of your heart will also be. And then verse 22, your eye is a lamp that provides light for your body. When your eye is good, your whole body is filled with light. But when your eye is bad, your whole body is filled with darkness. And if the light you think you have is actually darkness, how deep that darkness is. And verse 24, no one can serve two masters. For you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. That is why I tell you not to worry about everyday life, whether you have enough food and drink or enough clothes to wear. Isn't life more important than food, and your body more important than clothing? You know, many Christians read this and they think Jesus is talking about money. That's why I said this is one of the most misunderstood passages in the Bible, because Jesus does talk about money in this passage. People think that Jesus is against you making money. Some people read this, especially if they are, you know, so against the prosperity preachers. They say, you know, this is not it. But Jesus is not against you making money in this passage. Jesus is not against you caring about your life here on earth. While it is true that he used money as an example in this passage, but he's talking about something so much larger than just money. This passage is about priorities. Everyone say priority. This passage is about priority. At the end of the day, Jesus is calling you to set your priority straight. You have to make that call. You have to make that decision in your life. Whether you're Christian or not, I don't care. But what is your priority? And Jesus, without any reservation, is asking you here to Put God first in your life as your main and overarching priority over any other priorities that you have in your life. Now, the beauty about this is this, and this is the gospel, all right? Jesus is not forcing you to do this. See, Jesus, like Moses before him, like Joshua before him, like Elijah before him, he's presenting you with a choice. See, your hand is not tied behind your back. You have this choice. That's why I don't like it when Christians come to church and they complain. They complain about how hard they serve God. They complain about how much money they give to church. Man, nobody forced you to do anything you don't want to do. If you think serving God is so bad for you, don't do it. That's what Moses said. That's what Joshua said. That's what Elijah said. And now this is what Jesus says. If you think this is so bad, don't do it. God is not forcing you. God is gracious in your life. Salvation is not something that is a result of your action because of what you do. It is completely the grace of God. It's completely the gift of God. But what you do with your life is completely up to you, and God is not forcing you to do anything you don't want to do. So, 2015, let's make it a year. This is my challenge to all of you, and this is I'm going to keep repeating this challenge, and at the end of this sermon, I'm going to lead us in a prayer of commitment together. If this is your decision, I want you, once and for all, to make a decision to follow Christ for the rest of your life. I'm not saying that you're not going to waver. I'm not saying that everything is going to be easy. I'm not saying that you're never going to fall from keeping your commitment. I'm not saying that. But this is about your heart attitude. This is about your mindset. This is about your master value over any other values that you have with your life. You know, it's not just a lip service, but this is more a heart service coming from your heart. So let's analyze these verses. What is Jesus trying to say here? Let's go back to verse 19 if we can and read the words of Jesus. Don't store up treasures here on earth where moths eat them and rust destroys them and where thieves break in and steal. Store for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and rust cannot destroy. Thieves do not break in and steal. Wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be. See, here Jesus points out the difference between two treasures. All right? And the mistake that a lot of Christians make when they read this is they think that storing your treasure in heaven means miserable life here on earth. That is not what Jesus is saying, right? It's not like you store your treasure in heaven and have a completely miserable life on earth. In fact, Jesus says, I have come to give you life. And life like you never know it before. Life in all its fullness. Because heaven is actually wherever God is. And God is in your heart, and right here, right now, while you are still living and breathing, you can have a bountiful life right here. See, heaven is not just a destination that we go to when we die. You know, yes, we do believe in life after death. Yes, we do believe in a day and a time where there will be no more tears, no more sorrows, where God Himself will be there to comfort us, and there will be no more death in that time. But heaven already started right here, right now. So it's not like Jesus is saying, don't worry about your life, just follow me and leave everything behind. It's not like that, all right? But Jesus is talking about where is your heart set? Where is your heart set at the end of the day? Because where you set your heart, if you set it on God, that's going to be where the bountiful, amazing life is going to be. And then he goes on to this very, very tricky statement in verse 22. Your eye is a lamp that provides light for your body. When your eye is good, your whole body is filled with light. But when your eye is bad, your whole body is filled with darkness. And if the light you think you have is actually darkness, how deep that darkness is. As I said, this is a tricky little saying, and it often confuses a lot of people. What Jesus is saying here, I think there are two ways you can look at this, all right? The first way is, literally, Jesus is telling us we got to watch what we see with our eyes. We got to watch what we observe with our eyes. I mean, there are a lot of competing things in this world that will vie for your attention in life. You know, there's just so many things, and I know it because I'm human with flesh and blood, just like you. Pastors are not immune to temptation. Pastors are not immune to the pleasures of life. If I have a choice, would I rather drive a 1996 Honda Civic or 2014 Mercedes-Benz? Of course, the later, I'm not immune to desires and things like that. But Jesus is saying here, you got to watch out. You got to watch out what you see, what you desire with your eyes. Because that's where it all started. All right? Literally, we need to take care of what we look at. When nobody is around, in your own private room, what are you looking at in your computer? When nobody's around, nobody's looking, how do you use your money? When nobody's around, what do you use your eyes for? But the second thing, I think is what's more important. This is the main point of what Jesus is trying to say with this little illustration. You know how at night when you drive your car and then you try to switch on your headlight and say your headlight is not working, it's dark, then you realize how dark the darkness is. Because in darkness, you need light in order for you to be able to see, correct? And Jesus says, your eyes is like headlight for your car to help you see where you are going. In other words, in this journey that we call life, Jesus says, you gotta know exactly who is guiding your life. What is, again, I'm going back to that statement, what is the master value of your life that you use to drive your life? What is that light? Are you keeping your eyes on God? Are you keeping your eyes on your Creator who desires nothing but the best for your life? Even with all the challenges that He allowed to happen in your life. Are you keeping your eyes on God to set the direction, the destination of your life? Or are you keeping your eyes on something else? If you keep your eyes on something else other than God, there is only darkness. That's why Jesus is often, God is often referred to as light, because that's who He is. In the beginning, when everything else did not exist, it was all darkness. And then God, the very light Himself, Jesus is called the light of the world. He created light for all of us. And that's what Jesus meant in this little illustration. And then He came to this last sayings that is very well known to all of us. In verse 24, He says, no one can serve two masters. Jesus did not say, I prefer you not to, or, it's not a good idea. But Jesus says, you can't. You can't. Because at the end of the day, maybe you don't want to admit this, but whatever master value you have, that's whom you're going to serve. You can say whatever with your mouth, but at the end of the day, you cannot serve two masters. You will either hate the one and love the other, or vice versa. The tendency that we have is to say, yeah, but Jesus, isn't this a bit narrow-minded? I like this either-or option. I like to follow you. But then again, I like to do things my own way every now and again. I like to control how I use my money. I like to control how I use my time. I like to control how I use my talent. I want you to give me a suggestion. I'll consider it. But don't tell me what to do. Because I like to do things my own way. I like to keep my options open. Jesus says, nah. I know as much as I like to, but you really can't. At the end of the day, you will hate one and love the other. At the end of the day, the master value of your life will override whatever it is that you value or you think you value in your life. I want to give you a few pictures of well-known celebrity, and I want you to tell me what you think is the master value of these people, all right? What do you think is the master value of this guy called Michael Jordan? What do you think is his value? His master value? I believe his master value is winning. He wants to win. There's no athlete in the world that I know of that wants to win as much as Michael Jordan. He drives not only himself, but his teammates really, really hard because his master value is, I have to win in life. I like winning. What do you think is the master value of this person, the next person? Gina Reinhardt. Probably money if I'm guessing. I don't know her personally, but that's why it's only a guess. This is a celebrity, there's no judgment or anything like that. But probably if you guess, she cuts off her own children from inheritance. I don't know why. But probably if we could guess, money would be her master value in life. What about this person, the next person? What do you think is her master value in life? Most probably God and people, especially the poor, the marginalized. That's her master value. That's what drives her in life. You can throw anything to her. One time, they were going to throw a banquet on her behalf. And she said, instead of the banquet, just give me the money so that I can give it to the poor. I don't need banquet. Because her master value in life is helping people. Is pointing people to the fact that there is a God who loves them and cares for them. That's her master value in life. And I want to ask you, if somebody is watching your life, if I put your photo up here on the screen, what would people who know you say what your master value in life is? What is it? Do people know? Do you know what your master value in life is? See? Even if you don't say it, you actually have one. That's why you gotta make a decision, Jesus says. 2015, first weekend in 2015, there's no better time for you to set your priority right once and for all and decide, make a decision. I want to put this. If it's not God, then so be it. At least you are intentional about it. At least you're not wishy-washy about it. Like, I want this, I want this. No, at least you make up your mind once and for all, right? At least you know it. These guys know it. For better, for worse, these guys, they know what their master value is. They go for it. You should too. That's my encouragement to you today. And then Jesus said in verse 25, and this is the relationship. Once you set your priority right, and if that priority is God in your life, that's how it's related. We often separate this verse with the other passage. Jesus says in verse 25, that is why I tell you not to worry about your everyday life. That's why. In verse 25, when Jesus says that is why, that means he is coming off of a conclusion. If you have decided to put God first in your life, that is why. Now, verse 25 makes sense. You don't have to worry about everything else. You don't have to worry about your life when you have your priority straight. It's like a domino effect. This is what you want. You want the last piece of domino to fall, correct? Whatever it is, maybe success, whatever it is in life. But you go through life trying to push that last domino because that's what you're concentrating on. And Jesus says, actually, you got to push the master domino at the front first. If you get this, the other pieces of the dominoes will fall. That's why Jesus in other places says, seek first God and His kingdom. And when you do, the rest will follow, right? And we got it all mixed up. Oh man, but just for this point in time, I'm going to concentrate on my career first. Just for this little while, I'm going to concentrate on finding a husband. Just for this little while, I'm going to concentrate on study. After I finish study, then I will serve God. Then I will, I'm going to accumulate as much money as possible first. When I have enough, then I will start giving to God. God says, no. you got the priority mixed up. Put God first and His kingdom, push that first domino, and the rest will fall into place. That's why I tell you not to worry about life. You know, Christians who worry about their life is actually an oxymoron. It doesn't make sense. You know why? Because when you set your heart on God and you have your priority as God, then Jesus says that is why you're not going to worry about all this other stuff. So this is the bottom line for us today as we start 2015. And I'm done, right? Don't get your priority mixed up. Follow Jesus and life will follow you. Don't get your priority mixed up. Follow Jesus and life will follow you. You know, before I came up here, we sang that song, You Make Me Brave. I love that song. I was crying a little bit when I sing that song, and it's such a beautiful song, especially the part where it says, where your love, crashes over me like an ocean coming over and over and over and over again. And then there's this part of the lyric that is so beautiful. For you are for us. You are not against us. God is not against you. Champion of heaven, you made a way for all to enter in. You made a way. You know, even God had to make a decision. From the beginning of time, God already made a decision that He is for you and He is not against you. Whatever you think has happened in your life is not a curse from God, because God is for you. He's not against you. He made a way because He has decided. And this is the gospel. Because at the hill of Calvary, Jesus made the decision. At the Garden of Gethsemane, He was wrestling with the decision. If it's possible, I don't want to go through this. But at the end of it, Jesus made up His mind. I'm going to drink this cup for you, for me. Jesus made a decision. He was pierced for our transgression, the Bible says. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on Him. Because of His wounds, we are all healed. You know, this crucified Jesus that later was resurrected is calling you right now to a decision. He's calling me to a decision. The reason Christ, He's not looking for a wishy-washy follower. This church will not survive relying on just wishy-washy followers. The mission, the vision that God has given to our church will not happen on the shoulders of wishy-washy followers of Jesus Christ. It will only happen when we have a church full of wholehearted followers of Jesus Christ who love God, love others, and serve the world. And that is our mission statement. This church is not interested in making wishy-washy followers of Christ. We want to help you to become wholehearted followers of Jesus Christ. And today I want to ask you to make that decision, And trust me, God is already there before you even start this year. All right? He knows your struggle. He knows the challenges that is ahead. I'm going to invite David to come back up here and the band. And I want us to hear this song of decision, of commitment. And I want you to reflect. This is not something that you need to make for the sake of me or the sake of the church, but this is between you and your God. Once and for all, as we start this new year, why don't we make a decision? Just as Moses called the people to make a decision, Joshua called the people to make a decision, Elijah called the people to make a decision, Jesus called the people to make a decision. I'm calling you right now to make that decision to follow Christ and to surrender your life to Him.